What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. For over 3 years now, this war has been nothing but a paradox. The intensity of hostilities, or at least the direct confrontation, reduces. The advancement of either side is minimal, as little as 10 kilometers in the whole year. If you're speaking about how much Russian army was able to progress after capturing Bakhmut until reaching the outskirts of Chasiv Yar. Yet in the process of doing this, tens of thousands of lives were lost. How is it possible, you may ask, that the intensity of fighting is close to zero, yet the losses are as high as never before? Trench warfare, heavy reliance on drones, and lack of early wartime motivation would be your answer. We're talking about 37 months of an exhausting stalemate, where the battlefield has been confined to a tiny fraction of Ukraine, barely 1% of its land, while both sides trade hard-fought gains and crushing defeats like never-ending horrible daily routines. The best analogy here would be running a marathon, which distance is a little bit above 42 kilometers, and the fastest completion is just over 2 hours, achieved by Kelvin Kipton back in 2023. Well, Russians did advance 42 kilometers as well. In fact, it was their furthest advancement of the entire 2024, with the only difference is that it took them a little bit longer than 2 hours 35 seconds. It took them 8,760 hours. That's how many hours there is in one entire year, which, according to simple math, equals to the average speed of progression to about 4.8 meters per hour, approximately a little under 15 feet per hour for our American viewers. So now visualize this distance, imagine walking it for the whole hour. Yet the number of losses is as if the Red Army entered Berlin back in 1945 once again. In this war of attrition, victories are measured in dead meters and a handful of square kilometers, while the price paid by human lives continues to soar. And while soldiers from both sides might have gotten used to this new reality, their friends, relatives, and mostly mothers are still extremely stressed every single day because of their loved ones being so close to such massive danger. So today, let's peel back the layers of this relentless conflict, a war that has become less about heroic triumphs and more about a slow, grinding, and utterly senseless attrition that ravages every layer of our societies. Over these 37 months, the war has morphed into a dismal contest of attrition, where both sides grind each other down over a battleground that represents a miniature fraction of Ukraine's territory. For nearly 2/3 of the conflict, the front lines have been locked in a deadlock, a perpetual game of trench warfare where every small gain is paid for in countless of lives and sacrificed honor. As mentioned previously, the longest offensive push by the Russian forces in all these years stretched to a mere 42 kilometers, just the distance between the outskirts of Donetsk and Pokrovsk. Same distance, once again, was passed by Kelvin Kipton in 2 hours 35 seconds. This sobering comparison portrays the grim reality. 2 years worth of fierce, unyielding fighting, a death toll rising into the tens of thousands, yet the territorial shift barely registers on any meaningful scale. Each hard-won trench is a testament to the cruelty of modern warfare. Every modest push forward is immediately countered by the enemy's own defensive efforts. According to averaged information from both sides, approximately, and this is real, 9 out of 10 assaults end in a complete failure, simply because it costs nothing to just hover a drone above enemy's position and summon the swarm of these flying machines as soon as your opponent starts moving in your direction. For this reason, both Russia and Ukraine decided that these assaults are pretty much useless now, and they prefer to resort to them only when absolutely necessary, or, in most likely Russians' case only, to punish non-obedient soldiers. Modern warfare is no longer the epic clash of titanic forces where victory is glorified. It is now a slow, relentless grind that chips away at the very fabric of the nation. And while both armies have the stubborn resolve to continue, the real question remains: at what point does the pursuit of microscopic territorial advantage become a self-destructive farce? This barren battlefield, both symbolically and literally, reflects a war where strategy and sacrifice have become so diverse from any real notion of progress that every small increment gained is simply another drop in an ocean of unending loss. But I mean, hey, Putin got to wake up every morning and get the good news that another barn in the middle of nowhere has been heroically taken by the brave Russian military. So even though it makes absolutely no sense neither to us, nor to relatives of the soldiers, nor to the fighters themselves, at least it makes Putin happy while he's having his morning coffee with a bagel, right? By the way, guys, a couple of days ago, Ukraine celebrated the Day of the Special Forces, and they released several very cool promo videos about the things that these trained professionals do on the battlefield. Very intense videos, nicely edited, and they do keep you engaged until the very last second. I uploaded all of them, at least what I was able to find, in addition to dozens more photos and videos to my Patreon, so if you wish to see this footage and support the channel along the way, the link to my Patreon is down below. Awesome support through this website, so thank you so much, guys, and now let's continue. As the war drags on, the human cost is measured not just in lost lives, but in the gradual erosion of the very spirit of both fighting forces. In a conflict where attrition has replaced strategic brilliance, both sides are scrambling to replace their losses. It is no longer about who can come up with extraordinary surprise for the enemy, or who can outmaneuver, outsmart, or encircle the enemy. Even though things like this still do happen, though with very reduced efficiency. Now it's about who can fill the gaps faster, who can replace one 18-year-old boy with another in a record time. The training, which used to last for several months, if not years, now all these yesterday schoolboys get 10 to 14 days maximum of literally crash course. The commanders say that the best teacher is the experience, so stop wasting your time in the classroom, go get an AK and get inside the trench alongside 19-year-old comrade, who was lucky enough to survive long enough to share his 2 months worth of experience sitting in an underground bunker and using restroom only when it's dark outside. Shooting? Who needs that? It's almost like Counter-Strike. Like, haven't you played this game like what, last week? Just point and click, point and shoot. Now imagine what the parents of these kids go through, when just 1 month ago they were going around universities and career fairs to choose the best path for their babies, and now they pay for express shipping on Russian Amazon for Kevlar breastplates so it arrives on time before their kids are taken. The Russian military, in its desperate attempt to delay the collapse, has resorted to recruitment practices so grim and unorthodox that they defy all meanings of decency. Picture another scenario, where soldiers, some already mutilated by battle, are ordered to rejoin the front lines. Such people as amputees and the severely impaired, deaf and blind people are forced into combat under the pretense of duty and survival. There is no romanticized heroism here. It is a brutal cycle where a man who has lost a limb is told that his disability does not exempt him from the assault, and that he should march right back into the attack. March on one leg, that's ironic, right? The grotesque farce is not just a matter of casualties on paper, it is a vicious reminder of how far a regime can sink when it treats human life as nothing more than expendable currency. The grim reality is that every trench, every forward position is defended and taken at the cost of dozens upon dozens of lives. All while the military machine keeps working at full capacity, forced to absorb these tragedies without any pause. The once feared prospect of the enemy's depletion of manpower is now matched, if not exceeded, by the relentless extraction of life from its own ranks. And as the recruitment drive pushes further into the desperation, the specter of a completely hollow victory looms larger. A victory defined not by strategic brilliance, but by the soul-crushing price extracted from every soldier forced into this bloody grind. The battlefield has become a grim arena of endless attrition, where every tactical maneuver only deepens the morale and physical wounds of a nation. what started as a contest of territorial control has devolved into a senseless exchange of futile gains. Back and forth where every small advance is neutralized by a counterstrike, leaving behind a trail of destruction and shattered lives. The crude arithmetic of this war is painfully simple. A few thousand square kilometers exchange for hundreds of thousands of casualties. An endless cycle of death and despair that chips away at the very core of civilization. It's not merely the loss of equipment or the fallen that paints this bleak picture, but the erosion of humanity itself. Soldiers who once carried dreams and the promise of protecting their homeland, whether a realistic or propagandistic version of this claim, are now reduced to shadows of their former selves, forced into roles where every order comes with the grim reminder of inevitable sacrifice. The propaganda machine, once adept at cloaking the true horrors of battle, now has to face the uncomfortable truth as images of crumbling morale and human degradation flood uncontrollably into the social media platforms. Videos that once shocked the public have now become normal, be it an endless stream of farewell messages from those conscripted into brutal reality, or men on crutches or mutilated recruits forced into another under 10% chance survival assault. The bitter irony is palpable. While the regime spins tales of valor and national pride, the front line tells a very different story. A story of desperation, where the cost of every gain is a piece of the nation's soul. And in this war of attrition, no one emerges victorious. The only winners are those who never dared to step into the battlefield of carnage in the first place. Amid the carnage and the ceaseless exchange of artillery fire, a singular thought begins to echo through the exhausted ranks and weary homes. Enough is enough. This is not our war anymore. This special military operation does not make sense. We are tired. The idea of an immediate cessation of hostilities, however unpalpable it might seem, at least now, starts to emerge not as surrender, but as a rational conclusion of a conflict that has already bled every possible resource, be it human, economic, or moral. This is not the stuff of lofty diplomatic negotiations or grandiose treaties. It is the raw, unfiltered sentiment of people who have watched their lands be scarred, their futures darkened by a war that has lost all meaning of purpose. Freeze the fighting along the current front lines, the voices insist. Stop the relentless push and pull over insignificant parcels of land and let the carnage finally come to a halt. The stark reality is that even if one side were to flatten a city or capture a few more kilometers of trashed territory, the strategic value would be negligible compared to the immense cost of human suffering and infrastructural ruin. Even if Putin gets a city at a cost of 30,000 people, that's not even going to be a city anymore. It will be just a completely desolate place that will require billions of rubles just to be rebuilt from scratch. You pay for the liberation, and then you pay again to restore the settlement to pre-war condition. Once again, what an irony. It's a deal as twisted as it is obvious. Both militaries are locked in a dead-end struggle, and the only potential solution is an uneasy, almost unthinkable peace. Prominent figures, from unlikely voices to those with considerable influence, have floated the idea already. The proposition, far from being a victory for either side, is simply the acknowledgement that in the 21st century, war of this nature only spawns winners in theory, the ones who never got involved. The price for a temporary truce is steep. It may look ugly and inherently unfair, with Ukraine potentially left with borders that are not even a shadow of its 2022 pre-war map, and Russia left clutching a patch of land that comes with an unimaginable burden of guilt and reconstruction. Yet in a conflict where the odds of a decisive military breakthrough are as distant as a mirage, the call for a ceasefire is not an act of defeat, but a desperate cry for sanity, a final attempt to salvage whatever remains of a society drowning in blood and broken promises. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Don't forget about our Patreon, where these Ukrainian Special Forces promotional videos are uploaded right now already as we speak. The link is down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.